We're back with another episode of Hoosier Myths and Legends.
I'm Rebecca Wilhelm.
I'm Mary Quigley.
And I'm Hope Wilhelm.
Join us as we dive into the spookier side of the Hoosier state.
So what comes to your mind when you think of Indiana? Do you think of corn? Do you think of basketball? Do you think of the Indianapolis 500? Maybe you think of famous celebrities who were born in Indiana, like John Mellencamp or Michael Jackson.
But as the saying goes, there was more than corn in Indiana. 92 counties make up the Hoosier state. In this podcast, we are going to discuss some Indiana folklore from each of these counties. If you are into tall tales, ghosts, or spooky legends, then this is a podcast you are not going to want to miss.
Hope could not be with us again, so joining us for the Season 3 finale is our favorite rock star, Earl.
Hey, what's poppin', everyone?
Glad to have you back for another show, Earl.
Good to be back.
So listeners, we have some news for you. After this episode, we are going to be taking a long break to work on our book.
As you know, we are writing a book for the Haunted America series.
Haunted Dearborn County, Indiana is set to be published in the fall of 2023. So if you're into Indiana history with a spooky twist, our book won't disappoint.
This doesn't mean that we're going away, though.
No, we plan to be back after our publishing deadline, which is this December.
Look for a new season and some new content after the new year.
We may also post some short stories in the meantime to our YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok accounts as well.
Well, let's go ahead and get started on this episode.
For today's episode, we're bringing you some legends about some haunted schools in Indiana.
I'm not sure what there is about schools that make them creepy, but you can find stories from all over the world. There are so many legends from the Hoosier state about haunted schools. We're about to bring you stories of what we believe are 5 of the most haunted schools in the state. We will talk about a former principal who legend says has never left the students that she was so dedicated to during her life, a demolished Northwest Indiana high school where a long-dead swimmer had been seen in the area of the old swimming pool. We have stories about an elementary school where the spirit of a murdered student skips the hallways of the last place she knew happiness, and a high school where a Native American chief walks the school grounds. We also have some legends from a private high school in Northwest Indiana where there have been several deaths and the spirits may have never left.
Wanting to do a story about haunted schools for a while, considering that the high school that Becky and I attended is on our list.
My old elementary school is as well.
Yes, and I have stories to share from both of these schools.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's get into it.
Well, obviously, we have to start this episode with some stories from our alma mater, Hammond High School.
Hammond High School was founded in 1884.
Sadly, we said goodbye to our high school, and it was demolished last summer.
I thought it was interesting to find out that Gene Shepard was an alumni from your high school, Mama.
Yes. For those who are wondering who Gene Shepard is, if you enjoy the movie A Christmas Story, that was written and narrated by Gene Shepard.
He's also the voice and narrator of the Carousel of Progress at Walt Disney World.
Well, let's get into some of the ghost stories and the legends.
So one of the legends associated with the school comes from a real-life incident that occurred on December 13th, 1967.
That was the night of the legendary fire that destroyed Hammond High School.
On that night, firefighters from Calumet City, South Holland, Lansing, Gary, Munster, and Whiting assisted Hammond in battling the 5-alarm blaze for more than 4 hours.
Students and faculty filled the football field watching the building burn. convinced it was gone and could not be saved.
By the time it was all over, the building had over $750,000 in damages to 45 classrooms, the gym, and the auditorium.
Arson was suspected, but sadly there was nobody that was ever arrested in connection to the fire.
However, the crime had a lasting legacy on the building until the day it met the wrecking ball.
In the 54 years between the fire and the demolition, there were strange reports of smells of fire and smoke throughout the building. Sometimes even a hazy film-like smoke would appear, then quickly disappear when you blinked your eyes.
Yeah, I remember this being a thing when I was there in the 90s. You would just get like a whiff of smoke or like a little quick fire smell. And as soon as it was there, it was gone.
Yes, it was almost like the smell would come out of nowhere and be gone before you know it.
That's wild.
You know, at the time, didn't think much of it.
I did not make the connection either.
When did you start wondering?
Well, it was when I came back to the building later on to work as a substitute teacher. And I actually had it happen to me when I was alone in the hallway on the second floor. And I was walking to that teacher restroom that was located outside of the auditorium. Well, I mentioned it to another teacher, and this person told me that that was a thing since the 1967 fire.
Yes, we started to ask around, and that's when we heard it was something that many people experienced over the years.
Was there anyone hurt or killed in the fire?
No, there was not ever even any injuries really reported. It occurred in the evening before the night custodian had arrived to work, so there was nobody in the building at that time.
There was just a lot of damage.
So why do you think this kept happening then?
Well, one theory I have is that it's just the building that was replaying a traumatic event that occurred, especially since no one had ever been charged in connection with the fire.
So this is what is known as a residual haunting. It's not a ghost, but a replay of a past event.
The statute of limitation for arson in Indiana is only 5 years.
Meaning the person who did this cannot be charged with the crime.
I'd love to know who did it, though.
Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of people who remember this incident and have wondered.
The other theory I have is that maybe the building was not fixed correctly after the fire and that this resulted in smells surfacing over the years.
Which may be a possibility since the auditorium caved in.
What?
Yeah, my junior year of high school, which was the 94-95 school year, our auditorium roof and ceiling actually caved in. And at that time, I remember overhearing that it was because of improper renovations from the 67 fire. We were without the auditorium for months while it was repaired. We had to walk over and use the auditorium at Tech High School.
It was pretty crazy.
And the other ghost story associated with the building comes from a drowning that occurred in the original high school pool.
There are differing accounts as to when the drowning happened.
Some legends say it happened in the 1920s.
Well, when I was a student, I was told by a teacher that the drowning happened in the 1940s.
Later after the fire, the pool was moved to the location that Becky and I were familiar with, which was on the ground floor near the gym side of the building.
But that's not where the pool originally was. The location of the pool later became the area that we knew as the band and the show choir rooms during our time there.
That's crazy.
Well, the story was that students over the years kept seeing a kid standing there just watching.
The boy would appear in the room where the instruments and lockers were. There was also practice rooms that he would be seen in that area as well. He always looked the same, dressed in old-fashioned swim shorts and drenched.
I was a band kid and just can't imagine trying to play music while a ghost kid in wet shorts watched me from the corner of the room.
I actually saw this spirit in the building. I took piano lessons from our music teacher. I was in there one day waiting for her after school and was on my way back to one of the practice rooms when I heard someone walking around. When I looked, I saw the boy, just briefly. He had dark hair and looked like he was wet and had just gotten out of the swimming pool. He looked like he was about 14 or 15 years old, and as soon as I saw him, he just vanished. I blinked and he was gone.
I remember when this happened to you.
Yeah, I noped out of that situation, went down to the payphone and called Dad to come get me.
Did you ever practice again?
I did, but never waited on my teacher alone. I actually told my music teacher what happened, and she made sure to always be there after that. It was just a quick glimpse, but I sure can't forget what I saw.
What's weird is she never said she didn't believe you. She never encouraged it, though, because she's a pretty religious lady, but she sure didn't dismiss it either.
It makes me wonder if she also experienced something.
Our podcast is growing, and it's so exciting to see all of our new followers on social media and all of the many downloads of our podcast.
Most of our listeners come from iHeartRadio. However, we are on all the major podcast platforms. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us through.
Your comments and likes help others find us. Thank you for tuning in to the Hoosier Myths and Legends podcast. Now back to our show.
The next school on our list is also from Northwest Indiana.
Kaler Middle School is in Dyer, Indiana.
One of the biggest things that happens at the school is clocks that fly off the walls.
Books are known to fly off the shelves.
Toilets flush on their own.
Students and faculty have reported seeing lockers open and close on their own.
It's thought that the main spirit of the school is Agnes Kaler, who was a teacher for 32 years, and she ended up also becoming the school principal. And the school's actually named after her.
There have also been reports of a little boy who was seen just wandering around the school. He disappears as quickly as he's seen.
Another creepy thing is apparently there was a construction worker killed when the building was renovated.
Yeah, apparently he was hit by a crane, and there is a memorial to him in the courtyard.
According to the 2015 Lake Central High School news article, an electric clock in the main office flashed "help" with the number to Agnes Kaler's old classroom. This was in the old part of the building, which does not exist anymore.
The school's hauntings are featured in the Haunted Indiana book, and the school is on ghost tours for Northwest Indiana.
Our next school is also from Northwest Indiana.
According to the school's website, Bishop Knoll High School was founded by the Sisters of the Poor Handmaids of Jesus Christ. The sisters obtained permission to start a Catholic high school in the Hammond East Chicago area.
It originally opened as the Catholic Central High School in 1921 with only 40 students.
In 1947, the school changed its name to Bishop Knoll.
So let's get into the ghost stories associated with the school.
The second floor A wing is apparently haunted.
Footsteps have been heard, and people have heard talking when no one else is there.
The lab rooms have reports of chairs falling off the desks.
It's been largely reported that at some point during the history of the school, a janitor hung himself on the second floor of the school.
The old pool area is also haunted. A freshman drowned in the pool, and it's said that even though the area is no longer used, that you can hear laughter.
The last strange thing is a cold spot in front of the library that has never been explained.
The cold spot is where a death occurred. It's unknown if this was a faculty member or a student.
The next high school on our list is from Northeast Indiana, and it's believed to have 4 spirits that walk its grounds.
Northside High School in Fort Wayne, Indiana opened its doors in 1927. We have some stories about the school that are sure to creep you out.
The building is built on Miami Indian burial ground. When the building was being built, legend says a tribal chief tried to stop the construction but was unable to do so.
The school adopted their school mascot and named it Chief Mac, and they did this as a way they felt to appease the spirit.
But this did not work.
The chief's spirit is said to walk the grounds of the school to this day.
During construction of the building, a worker was killed when a part of the building collapsed on him.
His ghost is most often seen whenever the building is being renovated or something is being changed.
Well, and there's also a former student spirit that's seen walking the track in the gym in the early morning.
A custodian passed away in the basement of the high school from a heart attack.
People have reported seeing a spirit roaming in the hallways.
And the last Southeast Indiana school on our list is one that's close to my heart. Both Earl and Hope attended elementary school there, and I was blessed to work there as the library assistant for several years.
We have a few stories from Moores Hill Elementary School.
There were all kinds of legends and stories that we whispered about on the playground. The most talked about one was the spirit of a little girl.
I heard this story my first year working there, and many felt the spirit of a former student who'd been murdered roams the hallways.
This spirit is said to roam the halls and skip.
Many people working at the school have seen or heard this.
Yeah, a teacher once told me that while staying after school to work on her papers and grading, she heard a child skipping and singing, and she noticed a blonde-haired child pass by a classroom window. Thinking it was a student, she went to look, and there was nobody in the hallway.
Another incident that occurred was the sound of lockers slamming in the hallway when no one was there.
Now, I have to admit that I heard this once when I went to help Mom in the library before school started.
Yeah, this was something that I actually heard several times while there. And honestly, it happened so often that if I was alone in the building, I just ignored it.
Wasn't there an incident with you and the lights in the library?
Yes, there was.
When I was first hired, I used to keep the library closet light on and the door open. And once when I was at my desk, the light in the closet, it just kept shutting off. Keep in mind, this is a regular light switch. It's not one of those automatic ones that's on a sensor. Just your regular old standard light switch. It happened several times and I couldn't explain it. I even put a ticket in and had the maintenance people come out and look at it. I think they thought I was crazy. They said, well, there's nothing wrong with the switch, but I know what happened. It would just go off every time I was at my desk.
That's really creepy.
I bet you started keeping the light off and the door closed.
I did. And the rest of the time I worked there, I never propped the closet door open and I always kept the light off. And the more I thought about it, and the more I think about it to this day, it's unnerving because it was like it waited for me to be alone in between classes for the light to go out. Nothing ever happened while I had students in there, or if the librarian was working with me that day, or I had another teacher in there. It never happened. It only happened when I was all alone and sitting at my desk. So I just don't like the idea of thinking about that.
Was there anything else creepy?
Some of the kids would talk about hearing footsteps while alone in the restroom. I know Sis heard that a few times.
Yeah, I had many kids tell me that over the years. The sound of footsteps and feeling like you're not alone. And it was especially common in the girls' restroom.
The school was closed at the end of the 2020-2021 school year.
I'm anxious to see if anything else goes into the old school, if they have any experiences.
Yeah, it would be wild to see if anyone else has stories about the building or if it's repurposed in the future if somebody has stories.
The building next door of the original school is also interesting, Carnegie Hall.
There's so many tales about that building. We would talk about that while we were on the playground. Kids kept saying they saw a guy up in the bell tower of the building.
The Legend of the Old Farmer.
Becky and I will be talking about Carnegie Hall in our book, Haunted Dearborn County, Indiana.
This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Earl, tell us about your upcoming shows and how our listeners can find your music.
Our gigging season is coming to a close, so we've only got a few more shows left this year. But it's been a very fun ride, and there's a lot more coming in 2023. But in the meantime, if you can't see us, you can support us by going to our website, LaceyLaneBand.com. That's LaceyLaneBand.com. And you can find a bunch of videos, pictures, links to all of our social media. We've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and yeah.
Awesome. Don't forget that we are taking a long break after this episode to write our book. We will be back after the holidays with some new spooky content for you.
Don't forget to check us out on social media in the meantime.
Have you ever had an experience at an Indiana school? Are you familiar with some of these school legends? We would love to hear about it. You can send us an email to HoosierMythsAndLegends@gmail.com or DM to Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. We may use it in a later episode. In the email, let us know if you wish to remain anonymous.
To see our source material, please visit our website, HoosierMythsAndLegends.com. Please find us and follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Hoosier Myths and Legends podcast is a Quigley Virtual Services production.
Our theme song was written and recorded by Wet Blanket. The song title is Taxidermy Race Car.
As always, stay spooky.